What's up, internet? I'm glad to be back. It's been a while since I made a video. Been fake busy, been my time been getting sucked away from me, but not too much going on in the way of Corona still being here. But some new developments. First and foremost, the Control Your Epps-Perience podcast is finally off the ground. I actually launched my first episode yesterday. It's available on this very channel if you haven't checked it out yet, as well as Spotify and more DSPs to come, and I'll announce them as they present themselves. But, keeping to the core of why I started making these videos in this series, getting back to some more black gun shit. Specifically, I want to talk about common phrases like common sense gun control. We've all heard the phrase that common sense ain't that common. And nowhere else is it glaringly obvious the way it is in the gun community. Well, I want to say the gun community, just the gun conversation. You've got so many people who remain nameless talking about common sense gun control, common sense gun reform, and it sounds right because we need to do something. But nobody really pays attention to the what that something is, just that something needs to be done. Today I'm going to go into the differences of various ammo calibers, and we can get into the roles that they play and hopefully debunk some of the misconceptions that some of you guys might have as far as what a gun is. Because at the end of the day, a gun is a machine, and a gun and the ammunition are literally applied engineering and applied physics. And there are some base concepts that one can imply are common sense, but the vast majority of people have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm trying to arm you both mentally as well as telling you to go out there and physically get armed. With that, let's get to it. All right, so what I have before you are just some samples of the various calibers I happen to have around the house. Before I get into any descriptions, I just want you to take a second to kind of appreciate the dimensions of each round and get into your mind some questions. What does that go to? What are you shooting with that? What are you hunting with that? Where would you use this? Just start brainstorming. All right. And then I'm going to set this back up in the tripod just to give you a more in-depth breakdown of what each individual round is. All right, so a couple things should have jumped out at you. First, obvious factors, the differences and variations in the size of each individual round. The second thing possibly would have been the materials. You'll see that some of them, most of them actually have a metallic casing, which takes up most of the actual length and width of the round itself. And then you get into these shells right here where they have a plastic casing and then a brass tip at the bottom. So you might have guessed that these are shotgun calibers and the rest of these are either pistol or rifle. How do you know if it's a pistol or a rifle? Well, a rifle is a long gun and pistols are by definition smaller. So these rounds right here are your pistol calibers. But this one is actually one of the most common rounds in America, if not the world, called the 22 long rifle. There are rifles that shoot this round, but they also go into 22 caliber pistols. And ironically enough, this one probably has been involved in, and this is anecdotal because I'm not in the mafia, and more murders than any other caliber, just for the simple fact that it's small, it doesn't wake up the neighborhood. You get close range, you shoot someone presumably in the head, it'll rattle around in their brain, kill them, and then the lead projectile gets mashed. It's very hard to match in ballistics, etc., etc. Not telling you what to use to go murder someone, just it is what it is. But the rest of these are common pistol calibers, so I'll name them starting from my right to the left. So this is the 22 long rifle that I was mentioning before. It's a very common caliber for pest control or just plinking. It's very cheap, very abundant, and it's great to learn basic marksmanship, whether it's a pistol or a rifle. This right here is the 380 pistol caliber. You'll recall in another video that this is pretty much the smallest caliber that I personally would feel comfortable carrying for a concealed carry self-defense scenario. These next two are 9mm calibers, which is like my Glock 19. You'll notice there's a difference in tips, which we can talk about later. The other thing I want you to notice is from a size standpoint from the 380. So, I don't know if you can really see it. The 9mm has a longer casing, but diameter-wise, they're pretty similar. Then these two are 40 calibers. And again, you'll see a difference in tips where this one is a hollow point, but it also has a polymer ball in there designed to help with the expansion of the bullet. And again, we compare the 40 cal to the next size down, the 9mm. Very comparable in size, but you can see a width advantage here. The next caliber is the 45 long Colt. Okay, so this is like one of your Western style guns. This is a very old caliber. It's made to be shot out of revolvers mostly. But when the 1911 became the service pistol of the United States military, basically it was one of the first semi-automatic pistols to be adopted by an armed force. They took this bullet and changed it into a pistol cartridge. Notice how much longer these are for revolvers. From here on, we get into our rifle calibers. This is the 223 round, the Remington 223, also known as the 5.56 NATO, which goes into the AR-15 and obviously the M4, M16 platforms. 223 and 5.56 are nearly identical. There's some small changes basically on the primer rim and the pressure, meaning the operating pressure on the inside, the volume as compared to how much gunpowder is in there. 5.56 is at a slightly higher pressure than 223, which is kind of important if you have a weapon chambered in these. If you have a gun that is made for 5.56, you can shoot 223 safely. But if it's specifically made for 223 and not 5.56, you can break in your gun and have a catastrophic failure. Eventually, that could injure you. So just keep that in mind. But this is the round that goes into the AR-15. Now, if you notice, the projectile is a lot smaller. It's comparable to the 22. There's just a lot more gunpowder behind it, but it's much smaller than these pistol calibers. We'll get into why briefly later. The next round is the 7.62 by 3.9. This is what goes into your AK-47 platform, and everybody knows the AK-47. What was it, Jackie Brown? He's like, when you absolutely, positively have to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitutes. That's a movie, but the AK has killed plenty of people. It's the most widely produced assault rifle ever made, coming out of the Soviet bloc, and then there's so many countries that copy it because the design is that good, and they're very easy to stamp and make. Comparing it to the American/NATO round, you can see that the 7.62 has a lot more powder. Even though that the casing is smaller, you should be able to tell that it's a lot wider, and the projectile's bigger. So this one comes out a lot faster and a lot heavier. A lot more force is delivered. Mass times acceleration equals force. That's a basic physics equation. So what's this bad boy right here? This is what are called a 30-06 rifle round. The aught in gun talk is just 0. So like 1906, no alpha, 1906. Well, this was made in 1906. That's what the 06 stands for. And 30 speaks to the caliber of the round itself. And again, compared to the AK-47 round, a lot more gas behind this. So it's going to be coming out faster. But the projectile is pretty similar. Okay. The reason why I bring this up is because if you notice, this also has a lead tip on the end. This is specifically a hunting round. By having the soft lead tip exposed, when it hits into soft flesh, it's going to want to mushroom, thereby delivering the energy to whatever you're going to hit and to drop it. Okay? But the other reason I bring this up is because certain politicians, who will go nameless, say, you know, the AR-15 is just this dangerous weapon. It has no place in modern society. You don't need something that powerful. This is what's coming out of your grandfather's deer rifle. Which one of these do you want to land in you? I mean, obviously neither one. Both of these will kill you quite dead. But look at that one and look at that one. Look at the gas, look at the gas. There's armor that will stop these two. You need the best armor to stop one of these. This bad boy, I don't have the gun that shoots this. This is your 50 cal BMG. BMG stands for Browning machine gun, and this weapon, the weapon that shoots this with the Browning machine gun, was developed right before, I want to say right before World War II, and it was originally developed as a vehicle and even aircraft gun, which is why it's so big. Okay, it looks just like the other rifle rounds. It's just freaking Huge. And then it later saw service when a special forces sniper decided that he wanted, the rifle at the time. I think that the largest one at the time was either the 338 Lapua or another dedicated sniper rifle. But they needed something they could punch through walls, they could punch through an engine block with one shot, disable a vehicle, and had decent accuracy. I believe the world record sniper shot was over like a mile and a half, made by a Canadian sniper using a 50 caliber Barrett rifle. So that's one of these. And again, I don't have one. It's one on my dream sheet. Why? Because I just want it. They're badass, but they're also expensive as hell. If you go on YouTube, there's people who hunt with these things just for shit and giggles, and the ballistics are surprising. Like they hunt whitetail deer, which are this is way too big for whitetail deer. You would think that when it hits it, it's gonna blow it apart, but it doesn't. It just blows clean through it. And there's actually one video on YouTube where a guy shot the whitetail deer and he dropped it, but he didn't actually hit the whitetail deer. It went right past its head, but the shockwave that comes with this thing, it snapped its neck, and when he went to go check on it, it blew the eyeballs out of the sockets. So that's crazy. So you obviously don't ever want to get hit with one of these things. There's a video on YouTube of a guy who developed body armor that gets actually stopped one of these things. But so what? You're going to be plenty dead on the inside. At least if it hits you, it's lights out. If you get hit with that armor on, you're going to be bleeding inside your chest for a few seconds before you die. So no thank you. You get into these bad boys. These are all shotgun shells. Okay? This is probably one of the most common shells that are out there. This is a 12 gauge. The gauge in a shotgun refers to how thick it is. And shotguns are weird. So the smaller the gauge number, the bigger the shotgun shell. So a 10 gauge would be bigger than this. Conversely, a 410 shotgun shell is this. And you can see the difference in width. Okay? 410s are typically made for like pest control, and my governor that I showed you guys in the other video actually shoots this. So this is a specialized self-defense round. But you can get little bird shot in here if you're hiking to kill snakes or whatever pests you may come across. All right. This is also a 12 gauge shotgun shell. I don't know if I just waved it up. All right. But you'll notice the difference in the length. Okay. So you see right here, it says 2 3/4. And this is a 3.5 inch Magnum shell. Okay. So if you have a shotgun, the main thing you need to pay attention to is how big the breech is, because that's going to determine how big of a shell you can get in there. Trying to shove a 3.5 inch shell into a 3 inch or smaller breech is not going to work. Okay. This one is 2 3/4. So that means that these rounds have different jobs. I shoot geese and ducks with these. Okay, so they're flying, they're far away, and this is shooting out a cloud of pellets. So you need a lot more propellant to get it out there and be lethal to kill those birds. All right, this is what's called buckshot. Okay, so buck, you typically can hunt deer with those if you're not using slugs, but you're hunting them with a shotgun at a much closer range. And you want bigger pellets. There's 32 caliber BBs. There, and there are 9 of them. Well, in this one I think there's 8, but they vary from 8 to 12 depending on what brand you get. But this is my self-defense round for my shotgun because it's got a specialized wad that controls how wide the pellets go, and it's only got 8 in there, so you reduce the risk of, you get a nice tight group that spreads out over distance, it's predictable, and you reduce the chance of one of the pellets just going off somewhere that you didn't mean it to do. They reduce recoil, meaning that there's less powder in there, but they're also more controllable. Inside your house with buckshot, you don't need to be putting the 3.5 inch. You're going to splatter whoever. This is going to splatter them too, but you're going to splatter them with this and they're going to keep going. All right. Getting back to the points, the various points that are on these weapons, they have different purposes. So typically when you have a bullet that has a full metal jacket, meaning metal, that's jacketed around a lead cord that looks like that, you typically use these for target practice, plinking, and stuff like that. Make no mistake, this will kill you dead. And these are typically the cheapest bullets out there you can find. Okay? When you start getting into modified tips like these have special, these have self-defense or hunting applications. Okay? Either way, they're designed to expand. Meaning that instead of when they hit something, instead of trying to punch through them, which a full metal jacket will do, when they get in you, they slow down because they spread out. And that's delivering more energy inside the target instead of punching through and hitting something behind it and being lethal. And obviously that's what you would want in a self-defense situation, because you want to knock down whoever is in your house or whatever it may be without shooting everybody behind them. And if you deliver more knockdown power all around, you need less ammo to get the job done. Same thing with the deer. You shoot a deer from 100, 200 yards away, you want him to drop. If you've ever hunted, you don't want to go looking for him hiking through the woods, have to go find them, then have to go carry them back, and you risk the chance of never finding them. Or worst case, you wound him and he's out there got to suffer. All right. So there you have it. Those are just some basic calibers. Like I said, for self-defense, anything from the 380 to the 45, whether it's a revolver, that's a typical, or a semi-automatic pistol, that's a typical handgun self-defense round. These are your so demonized assault rifle rounds. The AK-47 in the civilian configuration is just like the AR-15 in that one trigger pull means one bullet. But you see, these things are not these big, evil, all destructive rounds, especially compared to your daddy's deer rifle, which coincidentally, the predecessor to the M16 was the M14, the gun that killed Kennedy, and it shot a 30 caliber bullet more close to this. So you gotta understand, these weapons were, and their ammunition were designed for very specific roles, and it can be common sense, but you would, before this video, you might have thought that this was, the rifle bullets are so much bigger than pistols, or that they're so much more dangerous, and they are, but not for the reasons that you think. All right, so I hope you guys found that at least a little informative, and I hope it also sparked some questions. The next couple videos about ammo will go into various factors you might want to consider when choosing a pistol caliber, as well as a rifle caliber or a shotgun caliber, and what types of rounds to carry for different purposes. I do realize I briefly misspoke, put a pin in that between the differences in the AR or the 223 5.56 rounds as compared to the 7.62 by 3.9 AK-47 rounds, as far as which one hits harder, faster, etc. But I'll clear that up in the rifle round video. As usual, thank you guys for coming through. Remember, the Control Your Epps-Perience podcast is just launched. Check it out on Spotify or right here on the channel. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend. See you next time.